No one said a word when the first baby was born, and when the second arrived, the silence became terrifying. Emily Carter lay on the delivery bed, soaked in sweat, heart racing from the weight of labor and love. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times: the pastel-painted nursery, two sets of matching white booties, the embroidered teddy bears with the names she and Kyle had carefully chosen. Everything had been planned down to the soft lullaby she would hum on the way home from the hospital. But nothing prepared her for the soundless room that greeted her daughters. Two baby girls, skin like warm cinnamon, soft curls, jet black tiny hands reaching instinctively for warmth. Emily, exhausted but glowing with wonder, looked down at them and smiled. "They're beautiful," she whispered, her voice raw with emotion. But Kyle, standing just a few feet away, didn't smile. He didn't move. His eyes locked on the twins, wide with disbelief. Slowly, his hand slipped from hers. He stepped back. Emily reached for him, confused. "Kyle." He didn't answer. He didn't touch the babies. He didn't say goodbye. He just turned and walked out of the room. At first, Emily thought he just needed a moment. Maybe the stress, maybe shock, maybe... But the next morning, while she cradled her newborns, a nurse entered quietly and placed a manila envelope on the bedside table. No words, no eye contact. Inside were signed divorce papers. No note, no explanation, just his name, his signature, and a final silence. Emily didn't cry. She couldn't. She held her daughters tighter, their tiny hearts beating against her chest, and whispered something she would go on to repeat every year on their birthday. "The world may walk away, but I never will. I'm your mother, and I choose you." 3 weeks after signing the divorce papers, Emily left the suburbs. She couldn't take the looks anymore, the lingering stares from neighbors, the passive-aggressive texts from old friends, the pointed questions from Kyle's family. Even her own parents had started tiptoeing around her like she was carrying a secret, one she didn't even understand. So she packed what she could fit in her car, buckled her daughters into the back seat, and drove until the neighborhoods got louder, the buildings closer, and the people stopped asking questions. She found a small 2-bedroom apartment in a working-class district near downtown. Rent was cheap, the heater clanked in winter, and the walls were thin, but it was home. The early months were brutal. Emily balanced feedings, diapers, and late-night cries with online accounting work and part-time hours at a local community center. She pawned her engagement ring, sold her wedding dress online, and bought a used car that barely made it uphill. At night, once the girls were asleep, Emily would sit in the dim kitchen and stare at their faces, identical but radiant. Ava and Amara, 10 fingers, 10 toes, brown skin that glowed like honey in the sunlight. Emily loved them fiercely, but quietly she wondered, where had their features come from? One night she sent away for a DNA kit. The results came back a few weeks later: mixed ancestry, no close relatives, no clear answers. Just distant markers, blurred origins. Emily filed the report away in a drawer. She stopped asking and started living. Ava was the calm one, bookish, observant, always curling up with novels 2 grade levels ahead of her age. Amara was a burst of light, loud laughing, dancing barefoot in mismatched socks. The girls filled the apartment with life and chaos and joy. Emily made them a promise early on: no lies. So when they began asking about their skin, their hair, the way people looked at them in the grocery store, she answered gently. She told them about melanin, about love, about how families weren't made just through blood, but through choice, commitment, and heart. At the community center, Emily helped women in crisis, taught financial basics, offered support, held babies so tired mothers could breathe. It was there, 6 years earlier, that she met Laya. Laya was 7, quiet, wary. She never let go of her worn-out backpack, and she always asked for the nightlight to stay on. Emily saw something in her, something fragile but familiar. When the foster coordinator couldn't find Laya a temporary home, Emily volunteered. Just for a few weeks, she said. The girls adored her. Ava read to her. Amara pulled her into dance routines. Emily tucked all 3 of them in, at night, brushing curls, kissing foreheads, whispering the same lullaby to each. For a moment, it felt like something new had begun. Like maybe this was a family growing. But then one court hearing changed everything. A distant relative, an aunt no one had seen in years, came forward with full legal rights. Just like that, Laya was gone. Packed up and driven away in a car Emily didn't recognize, strapped into the back seat while she stared out the window with dry eyes and trembling lips. "Can I call you Mama, Emily?" Laya had once asked in the dark, her voice barely above a whisper. Emily had said yes. She never got to hear it again. Laya disappeared into the system. Years passed. Emily raised her daughters. Ava joined the choir. Amara painted murals. Emily worked, saved, taught classes, clipped coupons, and poured everything she had into two growing girls who called her mom like it was the only word that mattered. Every birthday, she told them the story of the day they were born, not with confusion or regret, but with awe. "You were miracles," she always said. "You changed my life." And then, on a quiet Saturday morning, just as sunlight filtered through the blinds, Emily came downstairs and froze. Ava and Amara were sitting on the couch, each cradling a newborn baby. Emily blinked. What is this?" she whispered. Ava looked up calmly. "She gave them to us." Amara nodded. "She said you'd know what to do." Emily's knees gave out. She sat on the floor, breath caught in her chest, and stared. Two babies. One folded letter, and a name she hadn't heard in nearly a decade. Laya. Emily dropped to her knees. Her daughters, 10 years old, calm as if this were any other morning, sat cradling two newborn babies wrapped in thin blankets. Neither baby cried. They were quiet, like they knew they'd already found somewhere safe. Emily's voice barely made it past her lips. Where did you find them?" Amara answered first. "In front of the library." She was sitting on the bench. "She looked really tired," Ava added, "and scared." "She said she couldn't take care of them anymore," Amara whispered. "But she remembered you, and she said you would know what to do." Ava reached into her sweater pocket and handed over a crumpled, folded piece of paper. Emily unfolded it slowly, already feeling the walls of her chest tighten. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smudged in places. But the name at the bottom hit her like a wave. Laya. "If you're reading this, it means I finally came home," the letter began. Laya, the quiet, wide-eyed little girl who once whispered, "Can I call you Mama?" in the dark. The foster child Emily had loved like her own for just 6 fleeting months until the court took her away. "I messed up, Emily. I didn't know how to be anything, a daughter, a mother, a person. But I remember you. I remember what it felt like to belong for the first time. I didn't want my babies growing up the way I did without love. So I'm leaving them with the only person I trust to do it right. You." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She pulled one of the newborns gently into her arms. The baby stirred, blinked, and then sighed against her chest like it had always known her heartbeat. 3 days later, Emily filed for emergency custody. She provided the letter, the background, the name. Social services opened a case, but given the circumstances, granted her temporary guardianship of the infants, a boy named Micah and a girl named Grace. She scheduled a wellness check, bought formula and diapers, and quietly sent off for a new set of DNA tests. Not just for the babies, but for Ava and Amara too. Something had been whispering in her heart since the moment she held Grace. A familiarity in the baby's eyes, a tilt in her nose. Something she had seen before 10 years ago. 2 weeks later, the results arrived. Micah and Grace were Laya's biological children. That much Emily expected. But what she didn't expect, what made the room tilt and the breath leave her lungs, was that Amara, the bright, bold daughter she had raised for a decade, was also Laya's child. Somehow during childbirth, a terrible mistake had been made. 2 babies. 2 mothers. And in the chaos of that silent hospital room, their daughters had been switched. Emily had raised Laya's biological daughter, and somewhere for those first few hours of life, Laya had held hers before the system took her away. Emily sat at the kitchen table for a long time, the test results spread before her like broken glass. She tried to breathe, to understand. She remembered the questions, the stares, the doubt, Kyle's silence, the empty space he left behind. And now she knew. She had never lied. She had never cheated. She had simply trusted the system, and the system had failed them all. Then came a knock on the door. It was a rainy Thursday morning. Emily had just finished warming a bottle when she heard it. She opened the door, and there stood Laya. Soaked, pale, eyes hollow with fear. "I didn't know if you'd hate me," she said, voice cracking. Emily didn't answer. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around her. Laya collapsed into her, sobbing like the little girl she used to be. Inside, Ava and Amara peeked from behind the couch, and one of the babies stirred in the bassinet. When Laya walked in, her knees buckled at the sight. She sank down beside Grace and Micah, her hands trembling. "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. "I wanted to do right by them, but I was so scared." Emily knelt beside her. "You did the bravest thing you could do," she said softly. "You brought them to someone who would love them." Laya looked up, her eyes rimmed with tears. "Do you still, could I stay?" Emily didn't hesitate. You never left. Time didn't fly, but it softened. Laya moved into the guest room for a while, then into the tiny storage space Emily converted into a bedroom. She started weekly therapy sessions, attended parenting classes at the community center. She didn't try to become perfect, just present. Emily didn't rush her. She knew motherhood wasn't defined by paperwork or blood, but by consistency. By the quiet hours, the midnight feedings, the courage to stay. And love, real love, didn't ask for explanations. It simply showed up. The 4 children, Ava, Amara, Micah, and Grace, grew like the roots of one tree, tangled and strong. They fought over toys cuddled during movie nights, and finished each other's sentences. They didn't care whose DNA matched whose. They had 2 moms, one by birth, one by choice. And they were home. On the girl's 11th birthday, Emily baked a cake with chocolate frosting and piped 6 words across the top in neat cursive, "You are the beginning of everything." Laya gifted Ava a drawing she'd been working on for weeks, a sketch of 4 children holding hands under a roof, with the word family floating in the sky above them. The kids didn't notice that the roof was a little crooked or the letters uneven. To them, it was perfect. One evening, while folding laundry together, Laya glanced over and said softly, "I used to dream about your house. Not the walls or the furniture, just the feeling. I never forgot it." Emily placed a hand on her shoulder. "Neither did I." Laya hesitated, then asked the question that had been haunting her. "Did I do the right thing leaving them here?" Emily didn't answer right away. She looked over at the baby monitor where Grace slept soundly. "You didn't leave them," she said gently. "You brought them home." 3 months later, with the support of social services and Emily's full cooperation, Laya was granted shared custody of Grace and Micah. Emily remained their legal guardian for the time being, but no one contested it. No one questioned anything anymore, because what they had built wasn't up for debate. It was lived, it was proven, and it was real. The apartment was still small, the sink still leaked, the floors still creaked. But every giggle from the living room, every tiny shoe by the front door, every night they sat around the dinner table, made it feel like a mansion. They weren't perfect. Emily still got tired. Laya still doubted herself. There were hard days, tense moments, and long nights. But every time Ava adjusted Amara's braids, every time Grace laughed in her sleep, every time Micah babbled mama and looked at both of them, Emily knew they were doing something right. No one in the neighborhood asked questions. No one wondered why the kids didn't all look alike. No one needed a story, because some families don't need to be explained. They just need to be loved. 11 years ago, Emily was branded a liar for loving 2 girls whose skin didn't match her own. Now she was something else entirely. She was a mother of 4, and this time no one questioned it.